Hi, it's Jim from Homes Now, Not Later. Today, I was asked a question by Ken Mann. What, Jim Peterson, what are the better solutions? And we were talking about, he was on a thread, Amy Glasser's thread, about stop the sweeps in Billingham. And I answered him that, give me a few minutes and I'll type it up. But I'm not that good at typing, and it's easier for me to just talk about it. So some of the better solutions, when I talk about stop the sweeps in Billingham, the city of Billingham spends $300,000 a year they call them cleaning up homeless camps. It's actually a sweep. Yes, they give the people a notice that if you're still here in a week, blah blah blah, you're gonna be evicted and we're gonna clean up the camps. Okay. I don't care if you give them a year. If they have no place else to go, what are they supposed to do? So, the question by Ken Mann was, what are some better solutions? Here's my take, and I'm not speaking for Homes Now. I'm speaking for Jim Peterson, a private citizen that does vote on election day, a homeless advocate, and a formerly homeless person that was homeless for 15 years. First, if we're not going to house the homeless people, then where do we want them to be? There aren't enough beds at the shelter, and even if there were, some people would not do good in a shelter setting. So, my first priority, if I was the city and I was in charge of dealing with the homeless, my first priority would be identifying the camps, finding out where they are, putting in a dumpster in a convenient location to the camp, and 2 porta pots. And then I would go into the camp and I would tell the people that are living in the camp that we're coming back in 2 weeks. If the camp is not cleaned up or is not kept clean, then we're going to ask you to leave. That is the first thing I would do before I did anything else. Then I would look for a place in the city that I could designate as a safe camp zone for the homeless. Part of being homeless, from when I experienced it and from the summits that I do talking to people, is no stability. So if we designated a safe place for people to camp, then they would have a stable place. They wouldn't have to worry about, when are we going to get moved? When are the police going to raid us? So on and so on. And I will tell you this, as a person that was in the shelter system and got out of it after a year and became a person that lived in the camps or jungles, whatever you want to call them. To me, stop calling it camping. It's their home. Camping is what you do with your family and friends on the weekend. It's not something you do 24/7, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. That their camps are their homes, their communities. Kind of like I live in Sudden Valley. So a camp is like another Sudden Valley, just they're homeless. They don't have a roof over their shoulder, over their head, except for maybe a tent, a tarp. A lot of people don't even have that. So, finding a safe place for the homeless to camp and provide security for it. If that's the concern about people, well, we let them camp, they'll do drugs and they'll do this. Or maybe they'll get their shit together and be able to get a job so they don't have to lug their shit around all day. Part of the other solution is I would find a place in the city or county to let Homes Now, Not Later start building tiny homes. Tiny homes aren't the total solution, but they are part of the solution. If you have a place to lock your stuff up and a stable place to live, and it's out of the rain and out of the cold, and you know, you can actually lay down on a soft bed and go to work the next day. Uh, you'd be amazed how many people would not be homeless anymore. Uh, Homelessness to me, if you look it up in the dictionary, it's under homeless, it means without a home. Doesn't mean mentally ill, doesn't mean drug addicted, doesn't mean alcoholic. It means you're without a home. Uh, to me, homelessness is so simple to solve. We have more boarded up homes and buildings in America than we do homeless people. It's just insanity to me. Uh, Another thing I would do is I would change the narrative. How are you going to get the community to support you to help the homeless if all you ever talk about is the drug addicts, the alcoholics, and the mentally ill? To me, that just puts a negative note on. It's like, oh, we can't help them because they're all drug addicts, alcoholics, and mentally ill. Well, maybe they're mentally ill, drug addicts, and alcoholics because there's no services in Whatcom County. There's only 8 beds designated for homeless people for drug and alcohol treatment. There's 800 homeless in Whatcom County. So if you want to play the narrative, they're all drug addicts and alcoholics, and we need 800 beds. But I'll like to let you know something: they're not all drug addicts, alcoholics, and mentally ill. But if I leave you out there for a month on the streets, you're going to have a mental illness. I can guarantee it. You're going to be depressed. You're going to be anxious. You're going to be antisocial. So, change the narrative. Come to our summit. Start talking to the homeless that are living in their cars, that are working full-time jobs. They're living in campers. They're living in camps. They work full-time. Somebody asked me the other day about how much rent could somebody afford. Well, according to the National Housing and Urban Development, 30% of your income. So if you make $1,000, or like my son, he makes $1,600 a month, he can only afford about $400 to $500 a month rent. Or like me, I'm on Social Security. I only get $647 a month. So a third of that, $200 a month. But you find me a place. So even if I wasn't married and have a house and my wife works, I would be homeless right now, to be quite honest, because there's no place I could rent. And then I hear people say, well, take a roommate. Well, let me tell you something. I've done the roommate thing. It doesn't work out for everybody. It's not the answer to everything. There's so many answers. But the main thing to answer your question about right now, there's 800 people in Billingham that in Whatcom County that are homeless. Then we need 800 beds of permanent housing, not 200 more beds of shelter. The shelter is a perpetual revolving door. Every morning, you got to pack all your stuff and haul it around with you. And every afternoon, you got to stand in line to see if you get a bed. So my answer to you, Ken, is first, put some dumpsters and porta pots out at the camps. Second, set up a safe zone for people to camp in. I keep coming up with Maritime Heritage Park. We all know in the city, whether you want it to admit it or not, Maritime Heritage Park is used mostly by the homeless. There's bathrooms right there in the park. System. You just, and then you have, I will say this. as the president of Homes Now would find the money to pay for security cameras for the park if the city would agree to it. Then the third thing I would do is find a safe place for people that live in their cars and campers to park. Uh, you'd be surprised how many people actually work full-time jobs, but they're living out of their cars or in campers, and they got to move them every 28 days or some stupid shit that these campgrounds have. Uh, but there's no place for people to park, and you got to move your car every 8 hours or 12 hours. So there's no stability. So that. Then the fourth thing I would do is start letting Homes Now, Not Later, build tiny homes someplace. It's not that difficult. And I'd start taking these boards off some buildings and start rehabbing them and that. And then another thing I would do is I would start building some freaking apartments that are set aside not 5%, not 10%, 100% for people that are living on the streets, and make it so they only have to pay 30% of their income. So that's some of my answers, some of my solutions. It's just not that I'm bitching about how it's done now. There are solutions. We need to think outside the box. We need to go by what Salt Lake City did. They decided to put their money into housing, and they called it housing first. And within 2 years, they dropped their homeless population by 91%. It's doable. So there's my solutions. I hope this answered your question. Sorry it's 12 minutes and something long. And it would have been a lot to type. It was much easier to do it this way. And if you like getting my solutions, get involved. Help us out. Go to homesnow.org or Homes Now Not Later on Facebook and check us out. We have a homeless summit coming up this Saturday where we're feeding pizza and giving away cold weather gear to the homeless. And then on December 1st through December 3rd, we're going to start at 3 o'clock on December 1st, and we'll have the camp tore down by December 3rd at 3 to 4 o'clock. And the sweep out is to stop the sweeps in Billingham and to raise awareness that people are actually living out in this weather. And something needs to be done. We need to fix the problem, not talk about fixing it. We actually need to do it. And the only way we're going to do it is if private individuals like me and you and all my friends that I've conned into this, like Amy Glasser and Doug and my wife and Tamara and Todd, all the people that volunteer for Homes Now. It's so awesome, and I can't thank you enough from the bottom of my heart. I mean, it's touching that a formerly homeless person that became an advocate, that became a husband, that became a father of 3 sons, is now actually out there doing what I've always wanted to do since I got off the streets, and that was help homeless people. And believe me, after the summits, I think you'd be amazed. Come down, spend an hour, spend 15 minutes, talk to a homeless person. Get to know them. They're human beings. They're somebody's father, son, mother, brother, sister, grandma, grandpa, aunt, uncle. They're human beings. Yes, some of them have troubles and some of them don't. But they all have the same one thing in common. They all are without a home. You want to solve the problem? Housing is the answer. Homeless is nothing but being home without a home. And that's our goal. And by 2020, Homes Now Not Later's goal is to have the 800 homeless people they say they are now housed. We don't want to be in this forever. We want to get this done. It can be solved. Don't ever let anybody say, oh, it's too complicated. It'll never be solved. Yeah, it will. But it takes people. You, me, other people, soldiers, to get out there and fight the fight. Thank you.